Afternoon, everybody. Good to see a nice congregation. I suppose we call it a congregation. Um, it's an episode that we did last month as well. We've had a couple since we did last month, but back through popular demand. Yeah, we are be talking back on storage on the HPE storage side, what's going on, and certain things that you probably need to be thinking about and doing quite shortly. First, I'll introduce myself, CEO of FGS, one of the main HPE storage gold partners out there. I think the main. Yeah, we go with. Yep. So happy with that. And I'll let James. You can introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm James Hall. I work for HPE as one of our worldwide field CTOs. I'm also an original 3PAR employee.
The excitement of that. Yeah. And thank you very much, Joe. Fire away.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. Good afternoon, everyone. Joe, I look after channel storage for HPE. So our channel partners, of which FGS are a very important one, of course. We do about 97% of all our orders go through the channel. So
90% of all the storage that comes through goes through you. Maybe you don't sell it personally, but
not directly. I don't have a hand on everything, but I do one here and there.
You don't know every deal and every part number.
No. You're not going to quiz me, are you?
No, I'm not going to. You need to sort your life out, Joe. Yeah. So, a few things we're going to go through. There's the main reason for this call, to the people on the call, to hear about what's happening to probably the best loved arrays out there for the last 10 years, which is the 3PAR 7 and 8000 ranges, because they are going into life. All good things come to an end, but get better. So we want to hear why they get better, but also what you can do about it, because just letting it happen and you suddenly not being supported with production arrays, probably not the best idea. So there's some different things you can do. So we'll be discussing that. But firstly, I'm going to come up to you, James. There were some big new announcements from HPE on the storage side last week. And so I know you always are. Just be a bit concise, yeah, because some of these announcements have been a little bit marketing droll, yeah. So
and last week is a good example.
Yeah.
So thank you. So we did have a big announcement on the 4th, and it kind of covered two areas for us. So one is the evolution of the Nimble platform and the Primera platform. So there was a hardware announcement, and we also took the opportunity to actually take those two different product lines and give them one product name. So you'll see the term HP Electra, and within that we have a 6000 range and a 9000 range. They are all NVMe platforms that we've announced, and they are the evolution of the Nimble Gen 5 and the Primera platforms. So, for customers today that have used Primera, 3PAR, or Nimble, when they're looking at that new technology, it will look and feel the same. It will have, the same features, the same functions. If they've automated it, it'll still work in an automated way. But it is just a hardware evolution. So, denser, faster, ready for NVMe. So that's the kind of platform announcement.
Quick one. Appreciate that. NVMe.
Yes.
It's the fastest and all this sort of stuff. Do people need it? Do people really need it? I mean, the drive itself might be super duper fast, but does it make much difference?
Actually, it's not a drive technology. It is a way of it's a way of moving data on and off a drive. So basically, the world today moves data around using SCSI, and we have done that since the day dot.
Yep.
And it's outgrown its purpose. It's out of date, and it's slow. So NVMe is the protocol that replaces SCSI.
Is that right? So not the actual drive. So the drive might be the same. It's the
drive is If you took a SAS NAND flash drive and an NVMe NAND flash drive, the only difference is the port, and that is the way you talk to the drive. So there is.
So it's like going EISA, the Easter stuff, or SCSI and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Back
absolutely.
in the day, yeah.
Yeah, back in the day.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
So that was the kind of the platform announcements that we made. The bigger, bolder move that we've made is to really think about how customers operate HP technology in the future. Well, today and in the future. And if you talk to any customer about their public cloud experience, right, it's all about how easy it is to do stuff, and that comes from the fact that you get a really nice console where you can control and manage everything. And that was the other part of our announcement, was our data services cloud console. This is HP. Think about HP being your on-premise hyperscaler. So you buy infrastructure from HP, and rather than logging into individual boxes or initializing individual boxes, you log into your data services cloud console from anywhere in the world, because it is a cloud service that we are providing from our data centers, and you can manage infrastructure anywhere in the world that you have deployed from us. So the first element that we announced was this fleet manager. So picture, you have a new customer, they're transitioning from 3PAR into, maybe they're going to the 6,000 or the 9,000, and they buy 2 boxes. And normally you'd go and install the 2 boxes, cable them up, put them on IP addresses, log into the box, build it, go to the other data center, log into the box and build it, or even maybe do that remotely, but you still got to touch both boxes. In the new world, in Fleet Manager, you could deploy those 2 boxes physically, or it might be 4 boxes or 10 boxes, physically to wherever they need to go. Once they're physically powered up and cabled, you basically connect to Storage Central, and then from Storage Central, which is a kind of an option, or the Fleet Manager, which is the option within there, is you can basically initialize the boxes, all from a single pane of glass, all without having to physically touch the boxes or actually go near the boxes. So you think about them patching those boxes. We release a patch rather than downloading the patch onto each box and then upgrading it, control it through a single pane of glass. So that's the first thing.
Like the Tesla model. They upgrade all their cars from the top down it goes.
Exactly. That's a really good analogy. I'm stealing that.
Thank you very much.
So that was the first.
Nothing, James.
That was the first one. The next element that we announced was the intent-based provisioning. So through the same data services cloud console, you go into your provisioning tab. Now let's say I might have 1 6,000 and 2 9,000s, and I say I'm going to deploy a SQL workload. It's 5 terabytes. I want that across 5 LUNs, and it needs to be in data center 1 because that's my primary data center. What happens then is the intent-based provisioner looks at InfoSight and says, okay, you've got these 2 arrays in this data center, but only that one is capable of doing what you're telling me it can do.
Right, okay.
So do you want me to select that one? You can override it and say, no, I'm happy for it to go on the other box. So you do ultimately have control. Once you select that box, it says, these are the physical servers that are attached. Where do you want the storage to go? I want it to go to that pair of servers over there. Click go, and that will know, okay, I'm talking to a 9,000 or I'm talking to a 6,000, and we're going to add the current models in as we go through the course of this year. It will understand which one it's talking to and issue the REST API commands, or calls, I should say, in order to configure that system.
Right, okay. So it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, so you think about, broadly as a vision, imagine if you had the cloud services console, but you were managing, all of HP infrastructure, whether it was at the edge or the core. Bit like your AWS experience is, you don't care where it is, you just say what you need. That really is the important bit of the announcement, is we are driving towards delivering cloud-based operations cross portfolio to customers to fundamentally change their operating model forever.
And use something then like Cloud Cruiser to move things around naturally. So you got GreenLake or whatever.
So Cloud Cruiser sits underneath GreenLake, so you can compare your public public
but it
cloud
removed things around. It would do analytics on it, AI, run it to say where things would go.
So Cloud Physics will be integrated to do that capability. It will also be. It'll also be. So if you're a HP consumer today and you have a legacy environment that needs refreshing, as part of the data services cloud console, you could say, I want to use Cloud Physics for the next 3 weeks so I can collect data and then size working with you and you working with us. That will be one function that we will deliver through data service, the cloud console.
Right, okay.
We will add there, there's a plan to have all of the features on the boxes added across probably the next 6 to 8 months. And then we will look to potentially do third-party stuff. Right, so, okay. One of the things that I'm investigating for the team is, wouldn't it be nice if you could pick up your block workload and move it anywhere in your data center, regardless of what the technology is, or to any of the big 3 hyperscalers? Because there's a technology out there that does that today, and we could provide that as a service through our cloud console. So what we're building is the control plane, and then on top of that, we will build, almost like you have today in Azure and AWS, a marketplace.
Right. Okay.
So it's a strategy, right? We're not doing it all on day one. It's a strategy, but that is the strategy that we're laying out. That is the goal for us to deliver that fundamental change to customer experience in managing HP infrastructure.
Well, I like that. I hope that was your idea, James.
I wish it was.
Yeah. No, so we're going to get on to. No, I appreciate that, because that's going to be interesting. I'm going to look more into that myself, because I must admit I should have looked more into it last week, but I got waylaid.
You've been busy.
Yeah? Busy. Yeah, everyone's busy, aren't they? Now, one of the things that has happened over the last 10 years, since HPE bought 3-par, which incidentally is why FGS was set up on that acquisition. I've always been a 3-par advocate, and we've always had a lot of knowledge in it, which always also helps. So we've come along for the ride, and it's been a great ride. Now, the 7,000, 8,000 range, which I remember, James, you announcing at one of our events.
I did.
Back in the day, about 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
You came to one event and you announced that, and it was the new 7,000 range coming out, and it's going to have 200s and a 400. They made it all exciting. They're coming to an end sooner or later. Yeah. So I'm going to go to you, James, Joe. Tell us about what's happening and give us some dates if you can. Probably start with the 7,000 range. So we're talking here, everybody, the P7200s and the 7400s. Yeah,
that's right.
There wasn't a 7800, was there, James?
No, 72s and
There wasn't
74s and a
7450. 7450, which was the all flash. Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So yes, so there's thousands out there, Pete. I mean, it must. So as you know, James, as you said, so 7 or 8 years ago it was launched. So having a look on our system, we think it's in the UK. There's thousands of 3-pars out there. Over half of them are over 5 years old, but they're still operating. You know, one of the great things about 3-par is it just keeps going and going and going, which is fantastic for a customer. As a vendor provider, when years later you're trying to talk about what's next, people are saying, well, it still works. It's still working fantastically. They're still operating within thresholds. They're reporting home. Their capacity and their performance is still working fine, but they're getting on a bit. And unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. And let's go to the 7,000 range first. We did announce end of life back in 2017. So it's been 4 years since you could buy a brand new system. It was only October of last year, so October 2020, that was the final chance that any customer could purchase any upgrades, discs, drives, adapters.
What date was that again?
That was October of 2020.
Right, so you can't get any upgrades now for the 7,000 range.
Exactly, yeah, we're out. Our inventory is unfortunately sold out there. And it will be October the 31st, 2022, so about 18 months away from now, that the support will run out. So end of support life is about 18 months from now.
Right, okay. So knowing procurement as I do, and the way tenders go, etc., for big things, and they start 6 months before, they order it 3 months before it goes end of life, then they get it out there. We are talking they're going to be out of support if they start 6 months before. You really have no reason not to start now, even if you don't deploy it straight away, but you're going to need to do something. Otherwise, you're at risk. Yeah, and most of these will be production arrays. Yeah, and so they'll be replicated, they'll be production. They're great, they don't go down, but you are running risk. Everything that's got a movable part or an electronic part will fail if it went on forever and ever. Yeah, so these things getting older, they're gonna fail. So not only will the risk increase because you'll have no HPE support, apologise, so's my age, but they're more likely to go down. That's just the way, laws of physics.
Yeah.
So let's start moving. Let's start looking what the options. And I think one of the great things we've got here is the options now are just so different than they were. You used to buy an old 3-par, I don't know, S class. Oh, you have to buy a T class next. Yeah. That's right. When, but this is different now. You could probably go in the HP range that you can go down to the nimble route if you're on a 7200, or you could go to the Primera 6000 ranges. Yeah, but you've also got the different ways of doing it, as you've just been describing, James. But you've also got different ways of purchasing. You can purchase, it's another CapEx route, but Green Lake, you pay for it just like you pay for the cloud. You pay for what you use. And you haven't got to then worry that as the last years happen, we've had the pandemic and we can't get any kit, and you might have to wait 5 months for something to turn up. So you put the order in after 2 months of tendering. 5 months later, you've run out of space. You are struggling. It's there already, and you're not paying for it. So you've got these choices to make. So what have you seen, James? You work with the real big, the enterprise class, really, don't you?
Yep.
Of clients. So what have you seen them doing? Give me some trends that you're seeing.
Yeah, so I think
especially where the people are moving away from the 7,000 because of this reason.
Yeah, so and it's one of those things, because I think depending on who you ask within HPE is I've got one of these, what should I go to? Depends on the answer. But actually, I think from a customer, if I was a customer, you've got to think, okay, what have I done over the last 5 years, and how is my strategy changing for the next 5 years? And let's be honest, I think everyone's strategy would have changed because of COVID.
Yeah.
COVID has accelerated digital transformation or application modernization, whatever you want to call it. It has shifted, the needle massively in the direction of speed. And so, think about the requirements for the next 5 years coming up. Are they the same? Have they changed? And also think about the experience you've had with the technology. Right? I know, we have. I'm not going to say how many, but in thousands of 3PARs out there. Some people have had the best experience they've ever had with storage. Some might have had a slightly rockier one. So you've got to think, okay, what's my experience been like? How is my strategy changing over the next 5 years? And then saying, okay, what models or what solutions within the HP catalog let me address what I need to keep doing and what I think I'm going to be doing in the next 5 years, but also enable me some flexibility, because who knows, I mean, hopefully there never will be another COVID, but what could happen next? So I don't think about it from a technology, I go from one of these to one of these, reassess, because, and we are seeing a lot of our customers go, from 3PAR into Nimble, because if you look at some of the capabilities we have in InfoSight today around Nimble, like the recommendations engine and the continuous optimization, that's really, really powerful and valuable. And it's ahead of where we are on the 9000 and the Primera. So sometimes it isn't the technology that drives the decision, it's the capabilities that sit outside of that as well.
So who making these decisions, James? What sort of level? Who do you talk to now? Because when I used to, say years and years ago, it was always the head of infrastructure, or there'd be a storage person specifically, or a storage area. It doesn't seem to happen so much anymore, does it?
No.
We tend to be forced upon us from above the sort of purchasing we want.
Yeah.
And this is what we want to have delivered, and this is what our experience we want. Now go and find how it does. It doesn't matter, as I said before, if it's 2 tin cans and a piece of string. As long as it does the job, it's fine. Yeah. I wouldn't advocate that as a form of communication, by the way. But yeah, so what sort of people would you be dealing with?
So it's changed dramatically. I mean, and I still deal with infrastructure people all of the time. I mean, I don't think that will ever change, because ultimately we're building something and wanting someone to deploy it. But I think, we're seeing more people from the business and more application owners getting involved with those decisions.
Yeah.
And so when when I look at, when we're talking to a customer, if we're engaged with infrastructure, application owners,
my son needs his headphones for his tutor.
And lines of business, they always become the most successful projects that we work on for customers.
Yeah.
Because we are understanding everyone's needs and tailoring a solution that delivers against everyone's needs. And so for me, actually, the most successful projects are the ones where all of the people that touch the infrastructure in some way, shape, or form are involved. And I think I honestly believe that businesses have come to that realization as well.
I tell you what, it's so frustrating when they haven't.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, you're talking to, and even when you see tenders that have been written by technical people.
Yes.
You're thinking, what on earth has it got to do with you? You have your input of what things can do, and they say we have to have encryption. Do you? You have to have replication. We have to be, we've got to be up 24 hours a day forever. And then you talk to the business and they say, yeah, it went down last year for 3 days. Didn't really matter too much.
Yeah.
But well, your technology guys are going to spend millions, and you say it doesn't matter too much. Maybe have a chat with each other. You decide what you want as a business, and tell the technology guy. And he's thinking, oh yeah, I can be really smart now and marry that together, align it. But there's too many people out there who don't align it.
Well, and I think one thing that has if you look at the kind of shift towards public cloud, and if I had £1 for every customer that said they had a cloud first strategy, I probably wouldn't be working. But actually, because cloud has been so accessible by people outside of infrastructure, I think in a lot of organizations it's forced the two together, because otherwise you end up with shadow IT everywhere. I think the challenge now is
shadow IT being the business going out and buying cloud without IT knowing.
Exactly. I think that the challenge now that's caused is you've got two different operating models, right? You've got the hyperscaler experience operating model, which is slick and joined up and frictionless, right? Like frictionless shopping, and then you've got all the legacy stuff. So I think, from a strategy point of view today, it isn't just an infrastructure decision. What features have you got? How fast does it go? How much capacity can you put in the box? Are we running, modern application workloads in containers and traditional, or one or the other or both? But it's also actually, how do we help you with that operating model? And this is why, and I'm kind of harping back to last week's big announcement, but the reason we have done what we have done is because I think there was a survey, and they might have even had it in the announcement last week, but I think 95% of the people that were surveyed, and I forget who did it, might have been IDC, had said that the operating model for hybrid IT is the biggest challenge, and they end up with hybrid IT by accident, not by design.
Got it.
So so again, when we talk about infrastructure, and we do, right? We sell infrastructure. That's what we do. And you sell it for us, and customers deploy it. We have a more successful project, I think, or outcome for the customer when we have the lines of business, or at least the application owners and the infrastructure people together. And I think now we're now going and finding other people to say, okay, what does the operational flow of this infrastructure need to look like, and how do we closely align it with what you are doing in public cloud? Because everyone is doing something, pretty much, unless it's a dark side. So it's, the landscape has shifted, and you kind of said start planning now, and actually you're absolutely right, because if you start to think about the application owners, the applications, what their transformation looks like, what the infrastructure people were doing and need to do, and addressing this operating model, that is not a 6-month process.
No, absolutely.
Right, and it requires evaluation, and people will go out. People with old 3PARs, like people with old Dell EMC arrays, they will go out and they will test the market, and that takes time.
It does, absolutely.
And I think the one thing that we are seeing a massive increase in is something that we're building, like a test drive center within HPE, which has been very successful. Is people don't just believe what you tell them anymore. Right, and they want to see this stuff. So if you think about a project now needs to have input from 3 or 4 different places of the business, whereas before it was just one, and then probably procurement. So that's more people, more time. The application landscape is changing. How? That's more more investigation, more time. Where we're like you said, a traditional storage refresh, or leave it till 6 months before. You're not start it now. Start that conversation now. Start getting the people involved now. Start understanding and start talking.
And the most important part, the most important part is not the technology.
No,
the most important part is getting to work out what the business requires.
Yes,
and which way it's going to go, and what's your strategy moving forward. Where's it going to be in a few years' time? And that is the most important part. We can all put technology together. It's not as difficult as it used to be. There's some great products out there now. But it's so frustrating when we see it, and you're just thinking, you've not even spoken to the business, so why on earth are you talking to us? But we sell to people like this, but we sell to people who are pretty damn savvy as well. So just a quick question, someone just asked this: Storage Central, is it similar in context to Aruba Central?
Yes. Yes. So we're on a journey, right? So Aruba Central has been around, I think, for about a year. I think, don't quote me. I think for about a year. So the data services.
James? I do know the answer, but
cloud control of network ports and wireless devices. I think the stat I heard the other day is it's managing something like 2.5 million devices and ports today. So. And it was architected once, and it didn't quite cut the mustard, and they re-architected it using a container microservices architecture. So the data set, the cloud console for storage has been designed in the same way. And guess what? They're all in an integrated platform. They all run in HPE data centers. Now, we've got networking. We've just announced storage. So, I'm not going to say, but it doesn't take a genius to work out where we're going. But the aim is you log into your HP cloud account, and through that you manage our infrastructure, or the infrastructure that you have from us, wherever it resides. You see, that's the operating model, but that, from an IT infrastructure person, does he care about that? He might do, because he's doing the configuration, but an application owner might care even more, because now he can get the roles and responsibilities he needs to go and get his own stuff. And that is where these things need to be kind of tagged together. And storage is changing, right? 3PAR has been, very, very successful. Nimble has been very, very successful. Yes, we have a new product name, Electra, but that doesn't change the underlying pedigree of those two technologies, which are Nimble and 3PAR.
Yeah.
What we need to do with customers now is let's start the thinking early. Yeah. Right. Because 8K is also going to go down the same road, right? And as will the 9 and the 20Ks. So start the thinking early, get everyone involved early, and just because you had one of these, it doesn't mean you have to go to one of these, right? Yeah. We've got tools to let you go between the different platforms.
The migration platforms now,
they're so advanced. But the key thing is work with you, Pete, work with partners, and work with us.
Yeah.
And
no, that's a good point. Working with partners, I'm going to be a bit, I don't know, controversial, shall we say? Working with partners, you've got the model like Pure Storage you've got. Sort of ignore the partners, but give everything to the partners.
Yeah.
I think the partners are rubbish and I think they're going to ruin it for them. Yeah. That's their model. And they're very successful with it. Now, HP's model, you're going to tell me I'm wrong, is even if the partner's rubbish, we're going to let them sell Dell, EMC, whatever into that partner, but we're going to still be loyal to that partner. Yeah. Because that's the install-based partnership, yeah. So what's your thoughts on that, Joe? There you go, mate.
That's a nice question.
Yeah. I thought you'd like that. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you it.
No, you didn't. So
tread carefully.
So here's what I say. So the clue's in the title. It's a partnership, and we're also aware that customers have choices. And Dell didn't become number one in the market from having terrible products. Dell have fantastic products. Pure did not go from nothing to where they are now in 9-10 years from having bad products.
First $1 billion storage company since NetApp. I mean, that's impressive.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's good. Yeah.
There's plenty of good options there, and sometimes that can be a bit of a circle where HPE are after Dell are after NetApp, NetApp's after Pure, Pure's after HPE, and it just goes around in a big circle. So, whilst we try and respect incumbency when it comes to partners, so we go back to them first. So the partner that's transacted a 3PAR 7-8 years ago, we'll go back to them first. Clearly, a lot can change in 7 or 8 years. Probably not the same account team, probably not the same setup. Quite often, we're telling partners things they weren't aware of because everything's changed in 7 or 8 years. Whole new account management team. So, whilst we respect incumbency, we certainly do appreciate partners that are out there talking HPE. They are certainly
a great answer.
They're certainly the partners that we love working with.
I think the other thing is as a partner, you've got to differentiate yourself. And for me, the clue's in the title, right? Value added reseller.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you are a value added reseller, then you are by definition delivering value to customers, and they see the value because you are having the consultative led approach, and you're being open and honest, and you're talking about the portfolio, not just I want to sell you one of these because that's what I know and understand. We rely on partners to do that as well, and that's a big thing. And I, my other half works for Checkpoint. When I do see sometimes you think, and I it goes around in my head. Value-added reseller. So I think it's a combination of all of us, right? At the end of the day,
that term though is self-given.
Oh, is that?
You call yourself, You call yourself. So I call myself a VAR. I can call myself a systems integrator some days.
That's true.
Some days I call myself a reseller. So the term doesn't mean anything. There's no substance to it because that term is given by the reseller itself.
Right. That's my ignorance then.
So, absolutely. You can't be qualified to be a VAR. You just decide I'm value added, so I'm going to call myself a VAR. Yeah. So they're slightly different. So when you get to a certain size or a certain niche, maybe people say you're a VAR or you're a systems integrator or whatever. So
it's more an industry,
right?
Yeah. So Pete, people come to you and your team because of the value that you add, and we respect that. So we're one of many choices as a vendor.
Yeah.
If you go to an Audi dealership, and they'll probably suggest you probably want to buy an Audi, right?
Probably.
Obviously. If you come and talk to HPE and you say what sort of storage solutions buy, I can probably bet you we're going to suggest one of the storage portfolio. So with resellers, that's what customers love.
Getting quite a pure array, yeah.
that is an option, but that's the whole point of resellers. It's supposed to be a partnership. Exactly. You're adding value. You're giving your opinion. You're seeing what's out there. You're seeing customers that winning with HPE. Hopefully you see customers that aren't winning with other vendors, and you think that is a safe place to be, because it's your reputation at stake as well as ours.
Tell you what, most vendors, as you said, James, or you might have said, Joe, they have good products. It's about making sure it's the right product in the right place.
Yes, at the right cost at the right time with the right SLA.
And this is where your VAR side is absolutely critical. The VAR, I'm going to use the term VARs, I've just belittled it, but but we'll use it. The VAR should be guiding you.
Yes.
There's lots of different ways to skin lots of cats, You should choose the one that aligns to what you want. The difficulty you have, as we were just having, if you don't know what you want, difficult to align it. You just got to say, I mean, it's what we used to say 10 years ago. Oh, how much space do you think you're going to need in 5 years' time? Resize it to that. You don't need to do that anymore, but still lots of people do it. So it's going to be, I think, this 7,000, 8,000 range going in the line is going to be really, really interesting, because clearly I sincerely hope that the people 7,000, 8,000 range will come to us and say, well, you really know your stuff in the HPE and storage world, which we do. And you've got massive experience of that. And the team you've got, not just me, or not me at all, actually, but the team there, and so they'll come to us for that reason. But for the people who've got 7,000s out there listening, and maybe listen to it on YouTube, etc., you need to go to your HP account manager. He'll tell you who your incumbent is if you don't know, because you might not have dealt with them since they sold you a 5-year support deal when you bought it. He'll tell you it, or she will tell you who it is, and that's absolutely. Try and find out who your HP account manager is, because you need to know them, because they are very good. They're skilled and they're surrounded by really good people. So that's where your first point of call should be, unless of course you know your reseller who sold it to you, you know the incumbent there, and you still really like them. Go there, absolutely. We've got real skill set in that area, but we will pressure you and challenge you of why you want it and what you're trying to achieve from it. We're not just going to say, oh, what have you got now, and we'll give you something similar. And some clients love it and some clients don't. They say, well, we know what we want. Well, but you don't. But just
I think there'll be less of that because of COVID, and because of the fast pace transition that customers have had to make to go to become, to digitally transform faster. I think an awful lot of organizations will not be in the, I've had one of them, I'm just going to have one of them. I think by default, and this goes if you're using Pure today and you've got storage refresh in 3 or 4 years, I think by default now, end users, customers will go, because it changes, because technology changes so fast, they will go and test the market. And it's down to us to show that we have the right products, the right strategy with the right operating model to prove that we're better than the rest.
And the right support level.
And I think by default, everyone has, everyone now are getting involved, on the customer side. We are seeing the application owners. And I think, I'm going to hark back to it again, but start early. Don't leave it to the last minute.
Absolutely. I think if all three of us are going to sing on the same hymn sheet, which we do anyway, simply say, start early, have a look. There's no downside to it. There's only upside. It means you can engage more people from your business, and you can actually get what the business wants. If you engage late, you won't. You're in a panic. You'll be arguing with, phoning up the account manager that you've ordered it from, saying, Jenny, where is that array? It should be here now. Where is it? That's the last thing you want. And then they say, well, it's nothing to do with me, it's to do with HPE, and there's blame goes around, and they say it's their fault, but you promised it. That's not what you want to be in. You want to be lining with your business, getting it in there nice and early, getting it exactly how you want it. Thanks very much. Maybe you're in the other one if you want for DR or for DevOps or whatever. So
Pete, it's always in the back of mind. Just one thing I was going to say is that sometimes see it where people order in the last minute and then they're in a desperate rush, as you said, to get something installed on site. But you've heard over and over again during this pandemic and beforehand, actually, shortages, always shortages, some sort of component. There's always some sort of shortages. We didn't do too badly through this, but you never know what's going to happen. We rely on so few kind of factories in the Far East that if one of them, if production stops somewhere, it's not just HPE. We all, Dell, Pure, NetApp, we all buy from the same components from similar places. So
Audi was struggling to sell cars because they could not get some of the computer components. Components? God, what am I talking about? You know what I mean? silicon and stuff like that going into their system. So it's their cars. They're not a car manufacturer anymore. They're not, you know, they are. Don't get me wrong. You do drive the things. But get them done. Get them sorted early. Get what's right for your business, and talk to people who are intelligent. Not saying I am, but you know, these two guys are. Guys who work at HPE and the guys who work here are. Talk to the right people, and you're going to have a happy life. So guys, tell me one big thing, James, it's going to change in the next year. Not HP, worldwide. And you can go, if you want to go IT, go IT. If you don't,
no. Do you know what? Actually, I'm not sure if it would happen, but do you know what I'd like to see happen? Is for, because you know, we've been the planet's been through a reboot, right? And if anyone's watched the David Attenborough program, and I'd love to see it. I'm not sure if it's if it's possible, but for 1 month, you know, of the year, or maybe it's even 2 weeks of the year, every year moving forward, we just grind the globe to a halt, stop air travel, stop, you know, limit cars, and give our planet a chance to breathe. That's what I know. You know, I'm sure there's some lobby somewhere as part of, you know, the GA, and that's what I'd like. It's a big order. It's a big order, but I think that would be a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I'm all over it. Joe. Sorry, I didn't ask you that. I'll tell you I was going to answer this. I thought it was a nice question.
Yeah, so I guess, Pete, I would say that whilst I've really enjoyed, I've enjoyed the commute in the last year and a bit, going from bedroom to spare bedroom to an office. So I would say that probably people won't accept long distance commuting in order to do a job or going to meet a customer anymore. We've proved even by today being on FGS TV that we can get a message out there quite effectively whilst we're sat in our own houses. So I would love it if there's a reset in the balance between being in an office and seeing people, and also being able to get up at 8:59 and still making a 9 o'clock call.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the balance I think is fantastic, but there has to be a balance.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, we've got FGS in Malta. And I didn't realise what a major part of my life it became. Going over there from the Monday to Friday once a month, and sometimes a little bit more, going to see people. I loved it, and the difference it made. Yeah, and I didn't really. It had a real impact on me. So I'm going over again next month. But going back to the question, I'm with you there, James. Do you know what I did this week? I've never joined a political party in my life. I joined the Greens this week.
Oh,
Green Party, yeah. I did.
So you're on the bandwagon then?
Absolutely. And I think they will have an impact in the next 10 years like UKIP.
Yeah.
Where I think they've become so popular that the other parties will have to take notice. Like UKIP, people took notice of UKIP, so they did something.
Yeah.
Gillian, I can't at the moment. Sorry. And so it's going to be interesting times.
Pete, they've done it in Scotland, right? As in Scotland's, for anyone that lives in Scotland, been up to Scotland, you know, there's so much beauty and nature and wildlife up there that the Green Party seems to do well alongside the Scottish National Party, and they've now formed a alliance based on that. Yeah, so I mean, and Scotland appreciates the value of kind of nature and looking after the world and the climate. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. So, well, let's get a better planet would be a great thing to see in the next. It won't be the next year, James.
No, I know, but you can live in hope, right?
So we just waffled on, everybody, just to chat about nothing that was none of you were interested in. But really appreciate your time, guys. Fantastic. We get snippets of this out. We're going to go through it, see what people enjoyed, and then we'll start to send them out on LinkedIn, send them out to people. And guys, as always, it is really, really appreciated. And
thanks, Pete. Thanks for having us.
Time. And I know we've known each other a long time, so hopefully this time next 2 to 3 months we do the same on a different subject. Maybe just talk about the economy, talking about the ecology of the world. Yeah. All right, then, boys.
Thanks for having us.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.